and this Hangout on Air is live. So, Rocky, thanks for joining me. I'm going to start the audio version of our podcast recording right now. If you're ready to go.
Ready.
Awesome.
Welcome to itManageCast, the podcast for busy IT professionals who want news, reviews, and interviews on the topics of IT operations, service, and project management. So put your head in the cloud for the next 30 minutes and join your host, Jason Kennedy, for this week's episode of itManageCast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 6 of itManageCast, the podcast for busy IT professionals who want news, reviews, and interviews on IT service operations and, big breath, project management. I'm Jason Kennedy, your host, and today we are fortunate to be joined by Rocky Pisto, the Engage coordinator from Vivit Worldwide. Hi, Rocky.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
I am doing awesome this morning. How are you doing?
I'm glad to be alive.
You know, it's good to wake up that way every day. Hey, listeners, Rocky is joining us to discuss how professional associations can help our IT careers, and more specifically, to learn about Vivit Worldwide and how that organization can help you enhance your skills and your professional networks. So, Rocky, thanks for joining us on the show today.
I'm glad to be here, Jason. It's been a while since we've talked last, and I seem to remember you did an interview of me probably 5 years ago at an HP Discover event somewhere, so the talent is still there.
5 years ago. It feels like a whole another lifetime ago.
It does.
My goodness. Back in the old Vivit days. So before we dive into today's topic, once again, we help our listeners get to know our guest. And Rocky, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you 5 brief questions and have you provide me with a quick answer. The first one off the top of your head is what we say, but those who know how the show runs, maybe there's been a little bit of pre-planning involved. But first question, are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. First question is, what is your favorite vacation spot?
You know, it's got to be this time Bonita Springs, Florida.
Now, and what's interesting about Bonita Springs, Florida? What brings you there?
It's my family has a condo there, and it's right on the Gulf Coast. And every time we go there, it's just, you know, you walk out of the condo and you're on the beach, and it's just relaxing after, you know, the kind of world that we live in that's pretty hectic with all the activities. Just to hear the waves, can't beat it.
That sounds awesome. That sounds great. There seems to be a lot of our guests have a an oceanfront theme to their answers to that question. So it
It's
could
been
be
a
something
cold
about
winter.
the IT community. And
It's been a cold winter.
And yeah, so for our listeners, where are you based normally?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and usually it's
been a
pretty
cold
mild
winter.
here, but the last couple of years it's been very cold, even here.
Right on. So yeah, so Bonita Springs, Florida sounds like a nice change. All right, next question. Preference, pen or pencil?
Pencil, and the reason for it, I'm really, even though I've been in IT for 34 years, I got my degree in fine art, so I'm an artist. I draw, I paint, that kind of thing. So I love the feel of a pencil.
That's fantastic. And before we end the show, let's remember to point people to where they can check out some of your art.
Sure.
Let's do that too, because I think that's pretty cool. Third question, preference again, Apple, Windows, or Linux?
You know, unfortunately, it's got to be Windows because that's been my whole career has been Windows. But as an artist, I've seen a lot with the Apple, but I've never had the pleasure of really diving into the Apple operating system. So it's got to be Windows.
I love that. Again, another theme I hear, Windows and the word unfortunately. They always seem to be together for some reason. I'm not really figuring that one out yet, but all right. Speaking of Apple's Windows or Linux, last book you read.
You know, the Steve Jobs book, I think, is probably the last one. I don't get a chance to read much. Just staying up in our field is tough enough to read documentation, much less relaxing read type thing. So I think that's probably the last thing I've read, which was very interesting, following my career in IT and following Steve Jobs and how, hearing about the various products through the years brought back fond memories.
That's cool. All right. And my last question for you, Rocky. If, heaven forbid, your workplace was burning down and you could only take one thing with you, and maybe I should think about rephrasing how I asked this question, but I don't know, it's very dramatic. What would be the one thing that you would take with you?
It had to be just, the experience I had today. My hard drive died for a little while. It came back to life, but without the hard drive on this laptop, where everything I have is on it, it'd have to be the laptop.
Right on. Awesome. Well, thanks, Rocky. And now that our listeners have gotten to know you a bit better, perhaps you can give a little more quick background on yourself professionally and how folks can reach you if they want to follow up on anything from today's show.
Sure. I've been in IT. I think this is my 34th year. I work for a company called Professional Computers, Inc., PCI. We're an HP reseller, and for the last 20 some years been focused in the HP software space, mainly in what used to be called Open. And so I've been there 28 years now, going on 29 years in May. And then from that, I got involved with the OpenView Forum, which is now called Vivit, which is the software user group for HP software. And been volunteering years running events in Ohio, Michigan, Chicago, Indiana, focused around the BSM suite of the HP tools. And beyond that, working with Vivit to help market all these webinars that you're seeing now as Vivit members coming through us through the Vivit Engage program that I've taken over about 2.5 years ago. And it's been very successful in bringing great content to the community in all the updates from HP and updates from partners and kind of going from there. So it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. So the Vivit Engage coordinator role, it's a marketing position that supports
yes.
the user group?
Which is, kind of different for a user group that's focused on practitioner level activities. But I guess they needed someone that wasn't afraid to talk to people and evolve this program. We used to run the HP conferences for the longest time in software here in the Americas. And when HP acquired the Mercury solution, that they had already contracted Vegas for the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, and didn't need us to do that. So we had to come back with a more deliverable model to generate revenue to keep the organization alive. And that's what the Vivit Engage program is. And it's been great working. We're working much closer with all the HP product marketing teams, field reps in various areas. The organization has grown. Our numbers are up to, back in the OpenView days, we were at about 5,000 active members. We're at over 30,000 today. So it's evolved through all the activity that we're doing with HP and some of our partners.
That's just an insane number of members for any IT user community. So that's fantastic success.
Well,
so Rocky, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say we've been growing in some of the areas that are hot now with security, mobility, big data, and all these organizations that were for HP and trying to bring their users along to take advantage of what we offer at Vivit. So that all helps.
Fantastic. So Rocky, if people get a hold of you through your Vivit role, if they have questions about getting engaged with the Vivit community, how can they contact you?
It's Rocky, ROCKY.Pisto, PISTO, at vivit-worldwide.org, or they can reach me at 614-408-8500.
Awesome. We'll include that contact information in the show notes for anybody who wants to follow up. All right. Thank you very much for that, Rocky. That was a great background on you and the organization. And like I said, we'll include all that in the show notes. And let's get into the meat a little bit more. Today, we'd like to learn a little bit more about Vivit Worldwide and how these kinds of professional organizations can help our careers as IT professionals. So you've given us a little bit of background on the history of Vivit, but maybe you can round out that, Rocky, for us a little bit more by talking about the current state of the user group.
Sure. Well, we've been around since the OpenView days. So 1993 was the organization started. So we're well over 20 years in the making, and it's run by a volunteer board of directors that come out of the organization from as a chapter leader or has some interest in the HP software space, and they kind of dictate where the organization goes. And we've evolved. The organization is made up of not only the board that provides the strategic input, but we've got operational folks that are running the day-to-day operations, making sure that when webinars are coming in, that they're facilitated and everything goes smoothly for the sponsor. But we've got, from a user perspective, we've got over 76 chapters around the world where people get together in person to talk about what's new from HP and user experience kind of conversations, best practices, as I call it, the good, the bad, the ugly. How did the implementation go? How did the upgrade go? Here's where I had a problem. Here's how I fixed it. These kind of things that users of the tools need to learn from each other, and we bring them all together. And recently, I'd say recently, in the last probably 5 years, we evolved our special interest groups, where organizations or customers, there's no local chapter in their area, but they can get together from a virtual standpoint. The technology is just like what we're using today, allows us to get together virtually and pick a topic, have a conversation, have a discussion, and help each other learn from each other as well. So we've got, I think, 19 special interest groups besides that are run by volunteers, just like the chapter leaders, to bring customers together, to bring updates from HP on what's going on, or, we have a problem, how do we solve it, kind of thing. So a lot of interaction to help our users grow their career, to make sure that they've got resources that they may not be getting directly from HP, getting it from a community that has really experienced the issues that they're having, or they've got the experience to help solve the problem. So there might be some gurus that kind of come into play and say, hey, here's why I've done this for other customers. It may work for you as well. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome, Rocky. Hey, question for you. Now, we've talked about the special interest groups. We've also talked a fair bit about, because Vivit did originate from the HP software and still largely focused around HP software, but with these 19 virtual special interest groups around the world, are they exclusively focused, the conversations that go on there, on HP software products, or do they also discuss larger trends and technologies?
Good question. Some of them are very focused, like Service Management Group or the BSM Group, but there's a lot of more open special interest groups, like a discussion around mobility, big data, more 10,000 foot view type conversations on where technology is going, cloud, for example. So I think it's kind of a combination of both, but I think the focus is always around HP tools and how they can make these areas enhance the environment for their customers. So yeah, we are mainly, as an organization, an HP only focus. Obviously, there's the lot of conversation that people want to have is, well, how do you integrate with these other tools from other vendors? So there's a lot of integration discussions, but we're pretty focused on HP only technologies and HP only partners that provide solutions in the HP software space.
Great, very helpful. Thank you. So with the amazing number, 29,000, I think it was. Was that the number that you gave me?
It's over 30 now.
Over 30. Wow. 1,000 members of the organization around the world. It's an astounding number. How does Vivit Worldwide possibly engage on an active basis with that many people?
It's pretty simple, or simpler, I think, than it may sound, but we've managed to have coordinators both in the US as well as EMEA and Asia Pac to focus on the needs of our leaders in the different parts of the world. We find that, once you leave the Americas, every country is very unique in their requirements to host events and relationships with the HP people in the area. But, we go to the European Discover events every year. We meet all the HP marketing people, and it takes a while for some, but they find that it makes sense to work with Vivit to provide that consistency that maybe HP doesn't always have, because people are rotating in different positions where Vivit's always there. And so, yeah, it's amazing. We're seeing a lot of new chapter leaders now in Eastern Europe. We're starting to hit some of the beyond Australia, some of the Asian countries and those kind of things where, the language is totally different. And so we're seeing a lot of success there. And virtually, when these folks get together, I'm on some of these calls, and they are from all over the world. Middle East, we're seeing a lot of activity in the Middle East. It's growing.
Interesting.
So I think the model, we don't care where you're located. As long as you can get to an internet connection, you're connected to Vivit.
Fantastic. So speaking of connecting to Vivit, what does it cost people to have an annual membership with Vivit Worldwide?
At this time, there is no charge. It's a free membership. We live solely on the sponsorship from our partners like HP and the partners in the ecosystem to support the organization. And it's working. That's the activity that you're seeing today compared to 5, 6, 7 years ago. You're getting a monthly newsletter. It used to happen once a quarter if we were lucky. You're getting 3 to 8 webinars a month on certain related areas. A lot of activity. We're connecting you to HP events that are both physical. For example, they do these world shows. They do road shows in various parts of the country. We make sure that you're aware of that. So pretty well connected.
Awesome. So Rocky, we touched on this earlier in the show today, but maybe you can explain for us a little bit more about how you first got involved with Vivit, you said 15 plus years you've been involved with the organization through its evolutions. So not only how you first got involved, but how maybe other people can be looking at getting involved if they're HP software customers, consultants, etc., and they're interested in getting more plugged into the community.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Back when we first started in the OpenView space, and we were selling the products and consulting services and the hardware and everything, customers were asking me, well, how can I find out what other people are doing in my area? And so I remember going to a Vivit chapter event in Chicago, and I said, well, I'm not technical in nature at all, but I says, I know I can bring people together. And after seeing what they had done in Chicago, I said, I can bring this to Ohio. I can bring it to Michigan mainly. So I started the chapter there. And I remember the first few meetings, I think I got as many partners as I got customers, because they all were wondering, what am I doing bringing all their customers together to talk about HP software? I think they were getting a little nervous. And so it's been a lot of fun. And the customers appreciate that interaction to network, one, to find out what others are doing. But as you know, people change. IT today is not what it used to be 20 years ago. You're bouncing from company to company as requirements change and your skill sets evolve. So it's always good to know who's doing what that could help your career. And for partners, excuse me, it's the same thing. They want to know where the who's using the tools in the community, and to see if there's an opportunity for them to provide services and build relationships. And so it's a win-win. These are volunteer positions. You're taking your time out of your busy day to bring people together. And but I find that every time I do these events, people are always coming up to you and thanking you for bringing them together. And you find that eventually they're passing business cards back and forth, and they're visiting each other's sites to learn, here's how we're demonstrating a dashboard, or here's how we're, making things work. So it's almost a family atmosphere after a while. Jason, you and I have met back in Montreal. I forget what year that was, and you were in the same boat, and we've been friends ever since. So it's good to it's a great way to build relationships, both professionally as well as personally, evolving from there. So it's been fun.
Absolutely. So Rocky, here's a bit of a change in direction here, but with the Vivit user community being the HP software user community, and as you mentioned before, mostly focused on HP software tools and technologies and implementations and support, is there any value in being for necessarily using HP software at this time?
Kind of missed that part of the question. Is there any value in?
So is there any value to people who aren't using HP software currently at the time? Is there any value to them in being associated or involved with Vivit?
That's a good question, Jason. I think just knowing how technology works, a lot of these tools are very similar, whether it's HP's, IBM, ServiceNow, or whatever. I think it's good to know who's out there in the community. I think it's good to be involved and hear what people have to say, and kind of look at the methodology of how software is built. And for some, it's a good way to see what's happening in the future, because a lot of times, a lot of the presentations that we get are, here's where the product is going. You may not be an HP customer today, but knowing that they're in a space that you need to be in, that may be some value down. An area that we haven't talked about yet, Jason, that actually it's kind of in the preliminary, I can say that, stage, is that we're trying to build a leadership program, help IT people grow their leadership skills, be able to present in front of an audience, be able to facilitate, be able to communicate what they're trying to do to their peers internally, so they can sell, the next project that they want the organization to go forward to. And, typically IT folks tend to be, not in a negative way, but they're very focused, and as a practitioner level, they're very introverted, into the point where they're focused on technology versus communicating with others. I think just like with artists, sometimes IT people get into these roles because they just want to hide from people and focus on developing tools and technologies to support the organization, versus being a people person, or being a manager, if you will, having to deal with people. And so after 15 years of doing this and trying others to present, not only to Vivit members, but to their own people, on what they're doing to show success and get support, I think there's some valid solutions that Vivit can offer that you'll be hearing about in the near future on how to help grow careers for our members.
Well, that sounds really exciting, Rocky. I'd love to hear more about that, and maybe speak about that through the podcast when that program's ready to be released.
No, that'd be great. Again, we're still putting presentations together to our own management team and see where they want to go with it. But I think we're ready for that, to take a step into that direction to support one of the Vivit pillars, which is providing education.
Awesome. And I would definitely say Vivit foremost for me because of experience, but definitely large user communities like Vivit Worldwide are a great place to, in a comfort zone, start to build and exercise your communication skills, presentation skills, etc.
Absolutely.
So Rocky, we'll switch gears back into focusing on those who are HP software oriented. What kind of content is available to Vivit members?
Well, there's a lot of content. Foremost, the bulk of the content today is focused around webinars that we're doing for HP and HP partners. So we archive these things. We have a page on the Vivit website for recorded webinars that we've done it for HP because it's easier for our members to go to our website, find the most recent webinars that have taken place versus trying to find it on theirs. So we made that pretty easy. We have a knowledge base area, but to be honest with you, we're trying to fill that in as we go with content as we get it. But from a content perspective, it's typically the webinars, directing folks to e-blasts that HP is putting on or partners are putting on and providing that kind of content. Things that are very interesting for people from a local chapter perspective. So if I live in Ohio and I'm an HP software user, I should be a member of the Ohio chapter so that I know when the physical events are happening. And by the way, I can go in there and find presentations of previous physical events and see if there's one related to my particular interest, whether it's BSM, ITIL, or service management, or someplace in the ALM space. But so that's another area to find current presentations. And we have blog areas, we have areas. So in other words, if I'm a BSM member and I want to take a look at some of the communications going on, there's can't think of the word right now, but an area where you'll see communications going on, or someone has a question, who's done this, and people will respond to that in some of our areas there.
A discussion board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That's awesome. So maybe if I summarize what I've heard there, Rocky, it sounds like a lot of the valuable content available to Vivit members with the, as you said, free membership. When you create your free membership, you can choose which of the topic subject areas, 19 different subject areas you want to be associated with. And not only will you be notified of either physical events that are of interest to you in your area or areas you plan to visit, but also virtual events on topics that you're interested in, those webinars. And if I understand correctly, you can also access all pre-recorded webinars on various topics?
Yes. Yep.
That's fantastic. So that sounds like a lot of content. I'm assuming there's been a lot of webinars. I
remember the day, Jason, when we were begging for content, and today it just pours in. And I tell people when we get together physically, I go, take advantage of the opportunity to learn as much as you can about the technology that your company has made the effort to purchase. Pretend like you're back in college and just soak it all in, because it's it's key. And the other part is I encourage people to go to the conferences. If they can dedicate 3 or 4 days to going to the conference and learning everything there is to know about their space, it's just a great opportunity to network with fellow delegates, meet people, learn about technology, and see how that can grow your career.
So Rocky, on that note, are there any events or webinars coming up in the near future that our listeners should know about?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, we're done. Thanks.
Actually, HP Discover is coming up in the first, I think it's June 2nd to the 5th. So that's coming in Vegas. If you're a Vivit member, there's a link for a $300 discount to the conference. We've got
like pretty good perk to free membership.
Absolutely, because it doesn't cost you anything. One of the highlighted events that I've been involved in that happen on Monday before the conference start, they're called deep dive sessions. So a lot of our members, they go to these things, they get an hour presentation, they go, well, all we did was kind of scratch the surface of the highlights of the product. I really want to know how this stuff integrates with what I have today, if there's any unique customizations, almost a consultative approach to solving answers. So when I'm going to be doing an ALM upgrade, I want to find out what others have done and where the gotchas are. So we have these things called deep dive sessions. And this year we have 10 already. We just,
Wow.
They'll be marketed soon on the HP registration system. HP got a late start, and actually got 11 if we can get the space. And the bulk of them are focused around ALM, but we've got some BSM, some service management related sessions, both by HP and by some of our partners, practicing partners who do this for a living. So those are pretty exciting events where you get a 4-hour deep dive into a product or an upgrade before you start your real HP Discover experience for the week. And it's a great way to kick it off.
Wow, that's fantastic. So a lot of attention going to the show. This is the annual, HP Discover is the annual HP software and hardware, I believe, conference.
Yes, it's a combined event that they brought together a couple of years ago. There's over 10,000 people that attend these things. But software definitely has its section in the conference. We're all together with the community. So Vivit will be there. We have a Vivit booth. We'll have giveaways. We'll be giving away awards. Just a lot of activity around the Vivit booth at these conferences. And so we'll be, I'm sure, centered around wherever software is.
That's fantastic. And speaking from personal experience, I can remember the Vivit booth is always one of the funnest places to hang out on the show floor.
We try.
That's awesome. So Rocky, we're getting near the tail end of our podcast. And I want to ask if you can leave the IT professional who's maybe considering checking out Vivit Worldwide, if you can leave them with one piece of advice, what would that be?
You know, for me, it's always get connected. You become a member, get engaged. We're here to help you grow your career. If you're focused in HP software, that's ideal. There's no better place than to be a member of the Vivit organization.
Fantastic. So Rocky, again, we talked about this off the start, but just to make sure that if somebody missed the beginning of the podcast, or just to make sure it sticks in their heads, if people want to follow up with you or with Vivit Worldwide on anything we've discussed today or any questions they might have, how should they reach out?
You know, my email address is Rocky, ROCKY.Pisto, PISTO, at vivit-worldwide.org, or they can call me at 614-408-8500. I'm here in the States.
Awesome. And the website for Vivit Worldwide is www.vivit-worldwide.org.
That's it. Great, Jason. Thank you.
No problem. And listeners, we'll have that contact information in our show notes on itmanagecast.com. And in fact, I want to remind everybody, if you have any news, events, or interviews that you'd like shared on our show, you send it to us at itmanagecast@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter at itmanagecast. We'll make sure that you get full credit when we share them in an upcoming episode. All right. Well, Rocky, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Anytime, Jason. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It was great to chat with you again. All right, folks, that wraps up today's show.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to itManageCast. We hope you enjoyed spending this time with us, and we really want to hear from you. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at itManageCast, and email us your thoughts and opinions at itmanagecast@gmail.com. To join us for our live recording, Google Plus, and YouTube. This show was Creative Commons Copyright 2015 by Jason J. Kennedy.
And that's how we make a show.
That's great, Jason. What have you been doing these days?
Well, I'll tell you what, I am going to just kill the live broadcast here, and then we'll chat. Not a problem. That just means, people on YouTube don't need to know about my personal life.
That's right. I
All
thought
right,
we were
Rocky.
off, so.
Well, we're off the audio. Yeah, no problem. Hold on one sec.
All right.
Thanks for watching, folks.